Hello, hello. Success Coach Amy here with another flaming hot topic from Blaze. Building a life with action, zen, and energy. It is April 25th, 2023. 2 weeks ago, we had 75 degrees. It was crazy. Last week, it snowed. No accumulation, but it snowed. But that's typical for central New York. So now I've got the sun in my eyes because it just decided to blow all the clouds away. So I am out front of my house and it's just gorgeous outside. So I thought I would do a video out here. And I was talking today about parenting, but from the dad's perspective. So being that I'm a mom, I don't know what the dad's perspective is. So my coworker is, he's our parenting educator that is just amazing with dads. He's our only male coworker also. So it's kind of his thing. He loves it. He's really good at it. And he has a bunch of kids and they're much younger, but he's been working with families with kids of all ages for a really long time and adults with a lot of challenges. And so I said to him, what made you be a father? Not necessarily the what, I shouldn't say that. Why did you want to be a father? And so his one son is 6. And this kid is super smart, very verbal, and he's just doing great in kindergarten. And his dad talks to him like a person, like a grown-up. And sometimes his mom is like, he's 6, don't talk to him that way. But that's just what he's always done. And it's really cool because a lot of people forget that the parent is the child's first teacher. So if you're gonna goo goo and gaga and talk like this and you should be the baby and then the kid's never really gonna learn proper English, grammar, pronunciation. So yeah, you should be talking to your kids like a person. Don't use big college words, whether you went to college or not. Don't use big words when you're talking to your kids, but how else are they gonna learn? So as they get older, like preschool and elementary school, yeah, start using big words. Talk to them like people. And you're not just there as their parent to just tell them what to do. You're supposed to be modeling good behavior, modeling good language, modeling good tone of voice. That's a really big one. A lot of people are just yellers. They just yell all the time. They're just loud. And then a lot of people think they're just being yellers. They're just yelling at their kids, and more like a punishment, because a lot of people feel like yelling is the punishment, and that's not the case. Some people are just loud. And if you don't know that, it's very uncomfortable, can be very uncomfortable. So anyway, so again, just what I learned today from the dad's perspective, it can be really hard when you're trying to co-parent and you really have two completely different kinds of parenting views. I've talked about that before, and it's really hard to try to come together for some couples. And I don't know how I want to say it. It's just the communication between the partners that you have to talk about in order to decide how you're going to raise your kids. And I've talked about that too, where like, when do you decide to talk about raising kids? You know, before you are getting married, while you're pregnant, maybe even just as the moment comes. A lot of people are like that. They don't really talk about parenting. They just assume it'll work itself out. We'll figure it out. And that does work for some people, but a lot of people don't realize you really do need to work those things out. It's just like money and budgeting and career. I mean, yeah, you can change your mind, of course, but when it comes to parenting, you really need to talk about what kind of a parent you're going to be. And if you Google types of parenting, there's, I forget them all right at the moment, of course, but there's authoritative and authoritarian. And I remember those two because that's kind of where my family is at. So we have authoritative, which is me, which is I want to, tell you what to do because you wouldn't know otherwise. But authoritarian is more like just being a boss, being a dictator. And that's not okay for most families, and it's not healthy. Yes, a lot of people will disagree with me. They'll be like, kids have to be put in their place. Kids have to be taught everything, which that's true. But again, it's how you say it. If you want your kids to do the dishes and you just yell at them and demand that they do the dishes, there's already going to be emotional distress with that. And some people would say, oh, boo-hoo, whatever, they better learn now. But again, there's a right way to do that. Let me show you a trick how I do the dishes, and then you do a couple, and then they do a couple. It's a chore. Nobody wants to do chores. Adults don't want to do chores. Kids don't want to do chores. But these are things that have to be done. So again, it's how you communicate that. Your tone of voice, your facial expressions, the words that you use. Again, we've talked about communication. This is just what is being a human, being in a family. It doesn't even matter what the dynamic of the family is. So again, getting back to fathers, again, from what my coworker was talking about with me, was how they kind of feel a lot of times that they don't have any say in parenting. And that's because it's always typically been the mom who is stay at home and or just the caregiver in general, takes the kids to the doctor's appointments, stays home when they're sick, all those kinds of things. And nowadays dads are doing that a lot more, which is wonderful, because dads definitely need to be a bigger part of children's lives. It should be as equal as possible. It can't always be 50-50. If you can do 50-50, fabulous. Great, more power to you. But it's just not the case for a lot of families these days, whether you're in a single family, a single parent household or not. Even if there are 2 or more caregivers, it's still really, really difficult. But dads just have, it's almost like a reputation, for being the breadwinner and the harder one. And that's just not fair anymore. It's not. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't want my kids to grow up that way, but they're kind of sort of they were growing up that way. Now, as they get much older, it is different because I'm communicating better with my husband. And again, that's a big thing. If you're not taught how to communicate with your partner, whether you're in the same household or not, then that makes it super, super hard to parent as your children get older, because your thoughts change, your kids' thoughts change, life around you changes. Remember, the only constant in life is change. Therefore, things are going to change. And because one type of discipline worked when your children were 8 is not going to work when they're 12 or 15. It's just not. You have to change with your children. And for dads to get the reputation of being the authoritarian and, cracking the whip and all that, that's just, again, that's not fair, because a lot of dads aren't like that anymore. But some dads feel like because they're not that way, that they've lost control. They have no say in where the kids go to school, or what sports they do, or what activities they do, or what friends that they have. And that takes a lot of power away from a dad. And that's really difficult. And again, I'm just talking typical parenting, but it doesn't matter if you're same-sex couples, or like I said, if you have 3 or 4 different caregivers in the home, if you have grandparents who are helping raise children, and or aunts and uncles, or just friends that are actually living with your family for whatever reason, if they're helping raise the children too, they all feel like they want a part in everything. The discipline and the party planning and going to the school plays and just all the things. Everybody needs to be as equal as possible, and that can be super, super hard. But again, it's all about communication. So again, I can only give you what I'm told from the dad's perspective, because I'm a mom. And I just hope you all think about that. Just think about, again, trying to be as equal as possible and communicating, and just keep all of that in mind. So message me, comment with any questions or thoughts that you have on that. I'd appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe and share with all your friends. And I will check back with you soon. Until next time, wishing you health, wealth, happiness, and freedom.